Good afternoon, everyone. This is Arnold Bloom. I'd like to give you an agenda for today's webinar.
But leave me a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.
Okay. We have on the screen, if you would be so kind as to mute your telephone or your microphone, because with the number of people we're expecting, you know that can be extremely distracting. If you have questions, please use the chat box that is on your screen, and we will have a lot of time to answer those questions. We'll start out today with me. My name is Arnold Bloom. I'm from UC Davis, and I'll give brief opening remarks. We'll then shift to the meat of the presentation with Al Lopik, who is from the American Indian Higher Education Consortium, and he'll talk a little bit about their partnership with CAMEL organization and AHAC. And then we'll move to Bill Van Lopik from the College of the Menominee Nation, and he'll begin the presentation, and we'll then pass it over to Lisa Bosman, who will continue the presentation, and then we'll end with questions. This is today's webinar is part of the Climate Change Continuing Education Symposium. That is part of the CAMEL project, which is Climate Adaptation Mitigation, the e-learning project from the National Council for Science and the Environment, with funding from the National Science Foundation. This is the last of our series, so we've had 10 other webinars, and they have been recorded, and links to them are available, and I'll show you where to get them in a moment. And now we're going to raise the volume from 10 to 11. This is the 11th in the series, and this is the last of that. Today's topic is climate change and energy from an American Indian perspective. This series has been quite successful, and we are planning to continue it in the fall for you all and all interested parties. And we're seeking topics. One under discussion is to do a series on online education and environmental topics, something that many of us are involved in, and feel that if we had some expertise that shared their experiences with us, this would ease all of our attempts to work through this new medium. Okay. What is CAMEL? Next slide. So to give you a brief introduction, this is only a few slides, we have the Encyclopedia of Earth, which is a website that's been in operation for about 6 years. And as part of it, there's a CAMEL portal on climate change education. And here's my contact information if you would like to contact me later with any questions. So the web presence is the Encyclopedia of Earth. It's a peer-reviewed online encyclopedia, freely available to the public. It's wiki-based, and it's extensive and expanding. There's over 1,400 contributors from 60 countries and 64 content partners. Over 7,000 items, including 300 videos. It includes articles, collections, curriculum, electronic books, videos, and photo galleries. Registered users can post any comments, and it's easy to become registered. One of the portals, the one that is meant to engage more people, and means to connect content, groups, and people. It's dynamic, customizable, and it integrates easily with Encyclopedia of Earth articles into your website. You can create your own portal, say for your own class, developed by our software partner, which is Trinity, which took me several months to learn how to say. Trinity is the name of the company. CAMEL is a climate change education portal based through this software. So the CAMEL portal, what is available? Over 600 entries related to climate change. I'll show you this in just a moment. And many are from the Encyclopedia of Earth and are peer-reviewed, and they're clearly labeled. Background articles, news links, and websites are also there. Educational resources such as syllabi, exercises, and PowerPoints are there for your use and for your enjoyment. All are accessible to anyone, including your students. What you can do after joining the CAMEL portal, and we'll show you how easy that is, submit comments and questions on the modules, post an article, video, news, or curriculum resource, There's templates to make this a very easy and standardized procedure. You can create your own sub-website, say, for your own class. You can mirror any Encyclopedia of Earth or Camel items used in your website. You can limit access to your students or colleagues. So the partners that we have engaged in this enterprise are listed here. Includes a number of universities all across the country, and a number of foundations, and a number of other organizations. And their materials are on the site for your use. So let me go to the website briefly, and then hopefully you're all seen this. This is the Camel website, and there's a free, it's a free interdisciplinary multimedia resource for educators. There's an introductory video. Hopefully you can see this. So you can view that. It's 5 minutes. You can go over it as many times as it takes you. And it introduces you on some of the aspects of the site in more detail than I'll have time to do today. But easily just to go to step 1, explore Camel. I'll do that now. And here you can. This is what happens when you explore Camel. We have a very hierarchical list of topics in a way that hopefully allows you to pin down to the particular topic that you want to see more information. There's articles and videos and learning materials on many of these, not all of them. And we are posting more for those for which there is a dearth of materials. You can join the Camel community. You just fill out this form. You don't have to pay anything. There's no dues. It's just that we want to know who you are and communicate with you as much as we can. So you fill out that form, and that's all it takes. And then last of all, what we really hope you get engaged is add resources to the Camel website so that other people can gain the benefits of your knowledge. So you have to be a member to add resources. And here I'm logging in right now, but and there it is, the resource type. You can have a whole set of different kinds of resources. Hopefully you're seeing this. I assume you are. And there's a template for each of those. Easy to do. So I'm going to pass the ball over to the Al, and he can continue and describe more about the interactions between the AHEC and Camel. Thank you, Al.
Thanks very much. I'm Al Kushlikis, STEM coordinator, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math coordinator for AHEC, the American Indian Higher Education Consortium. And so just to give a little context to the project, the tribal colleges, there's 37 tribal colleges in the U.S. with over 75 campuses, serving over 65,000 American Indians in 15 states, primarily located in the Great Plains, the Midwest, the Northwest, and the Southwest. The tribal colleges are emerging as leaders within American Indian communities in climate change research and education. And that's primarily through partnerships. We've got partnerships with NASA, the EPA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Bureau of Indian Education, the USGS, and now currently through Camel with SED and NCSE. Through this partnership, we're able to fund teams of tribal college faculty and SED member institution faculty, who you'll be hearing today, in developing specific Camel resources that are relevant to tribal communities. This project is expanding access to climate change content through Camel to all the tribal colleges. Of course, they've had access all along, but this is helping to promote participation on the part of tribal college faculty. Through the project, we're bringing a cultural perspective to adaptation and mitigation, particularly through the inclusion of more traditional ecological knowledge, or TEK, materials into the discourse, into the climate change discourse. And finally, the project builds on another NSF project that AHEG administered, which was climate change from an indigenous perspective, in which we had a team of tribal college faculty put together a set of curriculum resources around climate change, but that brings in local and cultural perspectives to the issue. So this expands that effort to a much wider and more global scale, I guess you could say. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Bill Van Lopik and Lisa Bosman to talk about their project. So go ahead. Bill.
Okay. Thank you, Al. You just have to pass the ball over. Okay. Thank you, Al. My name is Bill Van Lopik, and I'm a faculty member here at the College of Menominee Nation, and I just want to give you a little background of, here we go. So entitled our talk, it's going to be given by myself and Lisa Bosman, who is my colleague here at the college, and she happens to be in Florida at this time, but I'll pass it over to her after a little bit. But I entitled the talk here, Shifting Seasons, the Tribal Communities Fostering Resilience to Climate Change. And what I want to touch upon during this time is look a little bit at the historical context of the Menominee tribe, the establishment of the college, and also an institute related to the college, the Sustainable Development Institute. Look a little at tribal diversity, what is the situational awareness, and what is some of the research and academic efforts that we are undertaking in regards to climate adaptation and mitigation. The first thing would be good to look at, I want to mention who are the Menominee and their origin story of the stories of their creation, where they come from very close to where I'm talking right now, maybe 60 miles away, near the mouth of the Wolf River. And they believe that's where the first Menominee started. And they're called people of the wild rice because traditionally they have lived on wild rice. In some of the lake beds that surround this area, the shallow lakes, the harvesting of wild rice. When the white people basically came to the area, they named them people of the wild rice because of how they saw their traditional ways of survival. It's very important when we talk about the Menominee just to mention that as a tribe in 1954 they were terminated by the United States government, meaning the United States government decided that they would no longer be classified as American Indian. The United States government thought they were independent enough, they didn't need the assistance somehow of the government, and they were terminated. That was a very painful time for the tribe. That lasted until 1973, and through a signing by President Nixon, they were reinstated again as a tribe. One of the very few, maybe there's 2 tribes, I think, in the United States that have been restored after termination. Termination was a process of simulation back in the 1950s. So that was a very, during that time when they were no longer a tribe, they lost quite a bit of their land, and they had to sell it in order to pay off taxes. So just to give you a little geographic perspective, we're located here in northeast Wisconsin. The reservation has about 235,000 acres. About 4,500 people live on the reservation. Our college is located on the reservation. And here, as you can see, we're about 45 miles northwest of the city of Green Bay. Now, I'd like to show, if you have to look kind of closely, this is a satellite photo taken from 73 miles up. And as you can see on this photo, this sort of square area that's green as compared to other areas that are much lighter. And that is basically the exact boundaries of the Menominee Reservation is that green area. And as you can imagine, the reason why it's so green is because it's heavily forested. And the surrounding areas, particularly to the south and west and east, is agricultural land. To the north is a national forest, which you can see is probably not even as densely green as the reservation. And that is due to their practices of sustainable forest management. Way back, one of their original chiefs, Chief Oshkosh, he gave sort of the mandate for how the land would be taken care of and harvested. He says, start with the rising sun and work towards the setting sun, but take only the mature trees, the sick trees, and the trees that have fallen. When you reach the end of the reservation, turn around and cut from the setting sun to the rising sun, and the trees will last forever. And that's been basically the way the Menominee have treated their land, and they have forested, they have harvested it, but in such a way that there's always a continuous amount of timber to be harvested every year, and they don't run out. Matter of fact, there's more standing board feet of timber now than there was in 1854. So, nevertheless, during that period, 225 billion board feet have been harvested, yet as you ride through the reservation, you wouldn't know that. So a really great example of sustainability. And that term sustainability, I'm going to use quite a bit, because that's really one of the foundational aspects of the tribe. It's their cultural value is sustainability. And because of that, they've won certain awards. They've won awards from the United Nations for sustainable forest management, from President Bill Clinton when he was president for their ideas of sustainability. For example, the Marshall Pecor, he's the forest manager. He's been the forest manager for quite a long time. He said, it is said of the Menominee that the sacredness of the land is their very body. The values of the culture are their very soul. The water is their very blood. It is obvious then that the forest and its living creatures be viewed as food for their existence. When the college started in 1993 by Dr. Verna Fowler, who's still our president, these concepts of sustainability and caring for Mother Earth were very foundational in the beginning of the college. So much so that a Sustainable Development Institute was initiated at the same time that the college started, and they work in tandem on many projects. Some of the quotes here that I want to just highlight from Dr. Fowler is the second one here. Since 1993, the college has built its curriculum around these concepts and values. At the core are respect for the land, water, and air, partnership with other creatures of Earth, and a way of living and working that achieves a balance between use and replenishment of all resources. And obviously these values have come from the long time history of how the Menominees have managed the forest. So this commitment extends to all the human endeavors like science, technology, business, human services, health, and education that we teach here at the college. So this idea of taking care of the earth is foundational to our college based on traditional Menominee values. And that comes out in certain commitments that we've made here at the college that our president have signed, like the American College University President's Climate Commitment. The Clinton Global Initiative University, we're members of the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education.
We're part of their STARS program, where we monitor our energy usage and all aspects of sustainability here at the college. Why do we make these commitments? We understand the state of the planet, our situational awareness. People here want to practice self-reliance. That's an important aspect. They understand intergenerational equity of making sure all 7 generations in the past and the future have access to the same opportunities on our planet that we have. About social equity, environmental justice, economic development, and because tribal cultures tell us to make these types of commitments. Just briefly, just to show a little bit of tribal diversity, this would just be across the country, because I assume many people on the call today might not be real familiar with tribal issues. That there's over 4 million American Indian and Alaska Natives, according to 2000 census. There are 566 unique federally recognized tribes. And I want to stress that word unique. Each one has their own history, their own form of government, their own land issues. They're all very unique, but control 55 million surface areas around the United States. And just to look briefly at this map of the United States, you can see where, as Al mentioned before, most tribes and tribal colleges are on the Great Plains. Here in Menominee, we're the largest reservation east of the Mississippi River. We're the largest in terms of land area. Tribal climate change. Some of the issues that really affect, that are concerns of tribes in terms of climate change are things like things that affect the land base, like invasive species, like the emerald ash borer, which is a concern here in Wisconsin. It's a borer that is wiping out several different species of ash trees, and there's millions of ash trees here in northern Wisconsin. Mountain pine beetle out west, purple loosestrife, is here in Wisconsin and is really clogging up many of the waterways. I think on your previous webinars from Tohono O'odham tribal community, talked about water rights, tribal croplands. Obviously here, forest lands are a big concern, changing types of forest species, animal behavior. What is the different behavior of black bears, or out of the Pacific Northwest, salmon spawning. And just a couple slides here to put this in. What is the situational awareness? We understand that when we look at the global scene, that we have a huge burgeoning population. Not so much in the developed world, but specifically in the developing world. You can see since 1950, the population has been an explosion, and that has not let up in recent years. And most of that is in the developing world. Coupled with that, you have energy consumption, the energy consumption of oil. And looking at this chart, you can see that estimates here are from that we passed peak oil in 2010. Excuse me a minute. If you look at the 7 generations, you can see when we look at 7 generations, we look at 3 generations in the past, our generation, and what does it look like for the future. And we can see that we have some issues in the future for our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, as The amount of fossil fuels that we've relied on in the past is going down and the population is going up. And our reliance on fossil fuels is by far and away our biggest source of energy, with renewable energies only taking 8% of our total consumption. Excuse me. Many people look for other sources of energy like the tar sands in Alberta in Canada, but as a quote from James Hansen says, the simple message is oil sands may appear to be gold. We do not need energy, and there's a lot of potential energy in the oil sands, but it's fool's gold because it's going to be clear and understood within a reasonably brief period of time that we cannot exploit unconventional fossil fuels like tar sands in tar shale. If we do, we're going to have to suck the carbon dioxide back out of the atmosphere. Other things like you look at coal. Coal has lots of social justice issues, and particularly for Native American people. When you look at, well, number 4 here, coal plants have been built within urban areas in the U.S. and tend to be overwhelmingly to be located in communities of color. So they're located a lot where people of lower income would certainly include many Native American tribes. Also looking at, so we have issues with our current energy. As I mentioned before, we have issues of peak oil, we have issues of climate change, social and environmental justice, security, independence, and sovereignty. We have a friend that has come down to visit our campus a number of times, Larry Murkoleaf from Alaska, and he from the 7 Generations Consulting Group, and he has given us very powerful talks about how Alaskan natives are being affected in very dramatic ways by climate change, and we've had a lot of conversations with him, and he has showed us lots of photos of villages being swept into the ocean because of high water levels, about impacts on fishing and whaling and seals. If we look back here in Wisconsin, this is from the Wisconsin State Climate Office, and it kind of shows what can we predict in the future for Wisconsin. And as you can see here in the next 20 years, our climate will be more like Iowa in southern Illinois, and by the end of the century will be more like Arkansas. So that's going to have dramatic effects on excuse me. That's going to have dramatic effects on the forestry and the forest industry here in Wisconsin. I'm going to pass it to Lisa for a moment here, because I'm having trouble with my throat here. And then I might come back to finish my slides, but I want to get to her because she's going to talk a little bit how we're integrating in our courses some of this issue of sustainability and climate change. We're trying to integrate that into the different courses that we teach here, and she's done an excellent job of doing it into the statistics course. So I'm going to pass it to Lisa here, and if there's still time after that, I can come back to my presentation. There she is.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa Bosman, and as Bill said, I'm an instructor at the College of Menominee Nation. My screen is black right now. It takes a few seconds for it to warm up. There's some pretty good information here for you. Just to give you a little background on myself, I'm working on my PhD right now at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And part of my research entails the reliability of solar cells. So those are the pictures to the left. So I just wanted to mention that before I get started. The class that I'm about to show you, or the project that we put together this semester and implemented, about 95% of what I'm showing you is what was implemented this semester. There's the 5% that was the learning and things that I've decided to fix for next semester for moving along, but the majority of this we have used this semester. So the presentation outline, I'm just going to run through the project and the major components of the project. First thing I'm going to do is talk about the research ideas. Sometimes for students when they get started and to send them off on an independent research project and to say go find something, it's helpful for them to just have a list or some ideas to start with. So I'll go over that. The second thing I'll talk about the project description. The third thing is the project is broken out into 5 modules. So it's a semester-long project and it's 5 specific modules, and I'll explain the modules. Fourth is providing rubrics for each of the stages. Fifth is what students are saying. So I have quotes from the students on what they liked, what they didn't like, and then moving forward with what they learned. And then finally, I'll conclude with some benefits for the learners. So before we get started, I just want to mention that this project Before I get started, I just want to mention that this project is twofold. The one thing that we're focusing on is the climate change, renewable energy, sustainability, building awareness around that. And then the second focus of this project is that I want to make it easy for instructors to implement. So I'm providing hopefully all the resources that instructors will need, the modules, checklists, rubrics, and benefit or motivation to use it so that it can be easily implemented into a course or curriculum. So starting with research ideas. A few questions that I use to try to get the students started or their minds thinking about what topical areas related to statistics are as follows. First of all, within the Menominee Indian Reservation, how has the annual temperature changed over the past 100 years? Secondly, what is the statistical relationship between measured emissions of carbon dioxide and temperature on the Menominee Indian Reservation? Third, which type of alternative energy would be the most efficient or reliable option for the reservation? And going on to the next, there's a series of questions that we're not quite sure if the data is out there, but it definitely puts students looking out there. And if there's not something specific to the Menominee Indian Reservation, they might find something on a nearby or a close reservation or a nearby area that they can then relate or associate to the reservation itself. So some more questions. What is the statistical relationship between emissions and transportation? What is the statistical relationship between climate change, water availability, and energy production? So like I said, there's a series of questions. They are not stuck to these questions. They can go out and find their own project that they want to work on, but it's just a matter of ensuring that the data is available and useful for our class. The project description. So it's a semester-long project, and it has 5 major modules. So these major modules are due about every 3 weeks. So we have a 16-week-long semester. At the end of week 3, the introduction and background is due. Regression analysis is due at week 6. Hypothesis testing week 9. Inferences about differences week 12. And finally, the final report. So if you're not familiar with statistics, the 3 key areas here are the regression analysis, the hypothesis testing, and the inferences about differences. So these are 3 statistical techniques that they learn about in the class, and then they can apply to their specific project or data that they're working with. And the final report and presentation includes a reflection, and so this gives the students an opportunity to write down in a paper format what they've learned throughout the semester, not only within their own project, but within the peers that they are working with. The project is a scaffold assignment, so it means that each module builds on the previous. So like I said, we start with an introduction and background, and from there we apply the first analysis, which is the regression analysis, the second analysis, which is the hypothesis testing, and then the third analysis, which is the inferences about differences. So the deadlines, like I said, they're about 3 weeks apart, so it gives them an opportunity to continually move forward, but it's a semester-long project. The first 4 modules use a checklist to ensure the basic requirements are met. Sometimes working with the students, they aren't always sure that they're heading in the right direction. And I'll show you the checklist that I've created in a few slides. But it ensures that the students they're continually moving forward. They may not be moving in the right direction, and that's where the feedback is. So after each module, they're going to check their feedback, peer critiques, just to ensure that they are headed in the right path. The last module, which is the final report and presentation, it applies a rubric to assess the quality. So it's in the last module that we say, okay, after 4 modules, we've tried to lead you in the right direction, and this last module is where the grade or the assessment comes out. The last module also includes a reflection, which then assesses what the student has learned about climate change, renewable energies, and sustainability. So again, this reflection is not only specific, it's not just specific to their own topic, but also to the topics of the rest of the class. So for the modules, I'm going to skip out of here and into the PDF file. So I've created this PDF file, and this is what I plan to upload to the CAML website, depending on any feedback that I get today if something looks out of the ordinary. But this is an example of a worksheet that I would give the students. So they first need to do a peer critique. So splitting the class into groups, they need to critique 2 of their classmates. So first thing they have to check for is going through this checklist. The introduction, is there a research question stated? And so it's just a matter of going through, checking yes or no. Check yes, if it's not there, don't check the box. The second thing in the introduction is that the students need to find motivation for their research. So they need to provide citations, either from books, journals, magazines, websites, something that provides the practical support for the research. And so they need a minimum of 2 academic sources. Going into the background, the students need to clearly state 3 hypotheses. Now, each of these hypotheses are related to the statistical techniques that they'll be applying. So again, one statistical technique is the regression analysis. There's hypothesis testing, and then the inferences about differences. So then there's a hypothesis associated with each of those techniques. In the background, they also need to provide a minimum of 2 academic sources. And then finally, the data source is what they need to provide. So this is the very first step, the Module 1, providing an introduction and background. So before I even see these, the students are going to have their peers critique and just check mark yes or no, they have all these things. But also, it gets the student thinking about the peer critiques, one thing my group mate did well, and one thing my group mate could improve on. So it also provides them an opportunity to provide constructive feedback of one thing they did well, and then one thing to improve upon. Module 2 is very similar with respect of the outcomes. So this is the regression analysis, and this is the first statistical technique that the students will apply. They need to update the introduction and background depending on the feedback that they get from their peers or myself. And then they need to do the method analysis and results with respect to the regression analysis. Again, their peers are going to critique this first, going through the checklist. Yes, they have all these things met. And then again, their peers provide a critique, what they did well and what they could improve on. Module 3 and 4 are very similar. Module 3 looks at the hypothesis test. Again, we're looking for an update on feedback for the intro and background. The students complete a checklist and provide the critique, one thing they did well, one thing they could improve upon. Same thing for Module 4, specific to the inferences about differences. And then Module 5 is the final report, presentation, and reflection. So in Module 5, this is where there's the peer feedback on the presentation. So all the peers have the opportunity, whether they're working in a group or whether they're working alone or in a group, they get up and they present their information with a PowerPoint to the class. Immediately within the classroom, every student is required to tell the presenter immediately what they did well and what they could improve on. So this helps the students right off the bat, and they know immediately the things that I might write up afterwards and send them a week later, but they can hear it right from their peers. There's also a reflection assignment. So this reflection assignment requires a student to include a written summary of, first of all, their beliefs, ideas, and strategies about climate change, renewable energies, and sustainability that have changed and made the strongest impression on them this semester. Secondly, they need to do an assessment of their individual responsibility for climate change, renewable energies, and sustainability at this point, and more or less where the weaknesses and strengths are with respect to these topics. And those are the 5 main modules. Going back to the PowerPoint, the next thing is the rubrics. And so I also have this in this document. So like I said, I want to make this as easy as I can for instructors to implement in the classroom. The first rubric, and I give these to the students ahead of time, the first rubric is for the final report. And so it gives some definition or background to what the student expectations are. So it focuses on the topic is the introduction. There's the background, method, analysis results, conclusion, and overall flow. And at the top, points can be assigned for novice, effective, and expert. So again, this final report rubric, the students see it from the very beginning of the semester. In the first 4 modules, there's no assessment, there's no points. It's just a matter of it's a checklist. Did you get all these things done? So that provides student with feedback to help them move forward so that when it does come to this final report rubric, they know what's expected of them. The next thing I have here is the final presentation rubric. So again, the students get to see this ahead of time, and they know what's expected from them for the presentation. There's points assigned for novice, effective, expert, and the topical areas are organization, subject knowledge, graphics, mechanics, eye contact, and elocution. And then the third rubric is the reflection rubric. So like I said, at the end of the semester, we want students to look back not only on their own presentations, but looking at other presentations and identify what they've learned about their own beliefs or what they plan on changing with respect to the topics that we've talked about in the class. And then going back to the PowerPoint. So as a rubric that I just showed, the next thing we have here is the immediate student feedback. And I can tell you the students, I think they really appreciate hearing this feedback from their peers. I believe they get a little bit more out of it than hearing it from an instructor. So these are some of the things that the presenter did well. So I just grabbed a few examples of the peer feedback. So this is after each individual presentation. Every student in the classroom, there's about 12 students, would tell the presenter, this is what you did well. And then on the second slide, I'll show you, this is one thing for improvement. So some of the things they told the presenters, good eye contact and nice flow. You knew the information well. You spoke clearly. I liked how you engaged your audience. Loved the video. Went above and beyond the professor's expectations. Had lots of data. Can see you put a lot of work into this. Some of the things, examples of the peer feedback which the presenter could improve on, were a little bit more straightforward. And like I said, I think they appreciated these more coming from their peers than if I had said this to them after the fact. One of the things, try not to hide behind the computer, put less information on the slide, have more eye contact and speak a little louder, reduce using words like, and ah, facial expressions. Don't act like your presentation is horrible. But like I said, I think these are much better coming from their peers than if I as an instructor would tell them this information. You should have practiced the presentation ahead of time and more eye contact. And here's some examples of lessons learned. So these are things that would be covered in the reflection. And I just pulled out some quotes or interesting things that students had highlighted. First of all, what I learned from the presentations given yesterday as a whole is there are many different issues which need our attention. This student opened my eyes to something I'd always wondered about because of my recent trip to Arizona. From my reservation, you can see this giant cloud of smog over the populated areas as the sun is setting. This student made me aware of what the smog was created from, and I can now tell people about the toxins given off. Some other lessons learned. This student told us about the ambient noise from the wind turbines and how they cause sleep disturbances. They are very controversial, yet are in our own backyard. Never knew there were so many so close. Now this is in reference to one student did a presentation on noise coming from wind turbines. And she explained to the class ahead of time, this is very controversial. There's no real data to say whether this is true or not, but she did have some data that she was working with. The next one here, the story of stuff told us each person produces 4.5 pounds of waste a day, and yes, we can recycle the foil from Hershey Kisses. And for this example, the presenters brought in Hershey Kisses. Of course, all students like candy, and just made students aware that yes, you can recycle the aluminum foil on the Hershey Kiss. The third one here, this student made me think twice about how much of an impact our actions have on our surroundings. And I have one more slide of lessons learned. I realized how important recycling is and how it can improve the world so that we are able to have a place to live. The second one, thanks for making stats fun, and I really learned a lot. I was very worried about taking this class as I took college math many, many years ago, but I did survive. And the last one, I especially like how this student presented the information and made us aware of debates other energy sources bring to the table. And lastly, I'll conclude with some benefits for the learners. So like I said, I wanted to make this project easy for instructors to implement and bring into their classroom. So some benefits for the learners, first of all, it's a semester-long project. So it promotes student engagement in these topics, climate change, renewable energies, and sustainability, throughout the semester. So it's not just a one-time cram session at the end of the semester where the students hope that they put their everything into it. And so it's not a one-time thing, it's a semester-long project. Secondly, the rubrics and due dates provide clear guidelines as to what is expected and when. I think sometimes with students, we as instructors know what the expectations are, but it's important to put that down on paper and let the students know what we expect of them. Third thing here, the potential list of ideas gives students an idea about where to get started and what data is associated with sustainability and renewable energies. The scaffold assignment provides students with 4 opportunities for peer critiques and instructor feedback to ensure they are heading in the right direction. I think this is one thing that the students appreciated the most, is that they knew their efforts were worth it, and that if they weren't heading in the right direction for one module, by the second module, they would be moving forward in the right direction. The second thing is that this project applies to higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. The third is that students are given the opportunity to present their information, which builds their confidence in public speaking, so it gets them up in front of their classroom. And furthermore, students obtain that immediate feedback from their peers, which as to what went right and how they can improve the presentation. And I think that peer critique and peer feedback was very beneficial for them. The combination of the project, the presentation, and the reflection applies all components of Kolb's learning cycle. So it goes through the concrete, reflection, abstract conceptualization, active experimentation. And lastly, the students had an option to work individually or in groups. So this is just focusing on the student needs. We realize that the students have a lot of demands related to school, work, and home. So it's just giving them the option to work individually or in groups depending on their time availability. Oops, one more slide. And then the requirement for peer critiques gives students the ability to learn about topics outside his or her specific project area. So they get to learn throughout the semester not only about their own project, but what their peers are working on as well. The final reflection allows the student to reflect on what was learned over the semester. Furthermore, they will assess what the project means to their personal life and their individual responsibility to climate change renewable energies, and sustainability. And finally, the benefit for the learner is that the quantitative topic or the quantitative nature of statistics helps the students focus on their technical writing skills. And that's it for the project. When I upload this to the CAML website, I also have, excuse me, I also have a sample paper, sample report, and presentations to show just to help in moving forward. And that's it. I can turn it over to Bill if he wants to finish it up. Otherwise, I can open it up for questions.
Yeah, why don't we take questions in our last 7 minutes here.
Oh, we're running out of time?
One of the questions is, what role or expectation was placed on the students to do research on their projects, including the stories from elders and the significant source of research?
I can answer.
Sure,
there was.
go ahead.
Yeah, there was another assignment outside of the statistics class here at the college that we had students specifically and go around to elders and ask them on their perspectives of climate change. And that was one of my slides that I missed here. And if you go to the WGBH website under Teachers Domain, you can see the results of the students of their work of doing that, of interviews with elders on different topics regarding climate change. And that was very successful.
Also, a question was, what data sources did the students typically use?
Our initial plan with the statistics class was to work with our Sustainable Development Institute on getting some data so that we could apply something from the college. I know we have data that we're planning on collecting from the wind turbines. Am I right, Bill, that there's less data available for that?
Yeah, we're in the process of getting that, yeah.
So in the meantime, until we get that data, we just sent students off on their own to do the independent research for data and to see what students can find. I also did some searching for data. It was pretty much opened up to the web and seeing what students can find. And once we can get the specific data on our campus, then we'll focus more around that data.
Thank you. Another question was, someone would like to hear more about the traditional understandings of sustainability and how this is incorporated, engaged through the educational system of that you are employing.
Sure, I think, Bill, you can talk about that.
Okay. Well, to understand the idea of sustainability here in Menominee, I think it's good to look at the historical perspective that the Menominee tribe used to control. Their land used to go from basically from Chicago all the way through all of Wisconsin into the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That was all their traditional land. And through the whole series of treaties and treaties that were not written very fairly for them, they lost most of that land, and what they've left with is this piece of land here in northeast Wisconsin, which at the time was considered kind of a wasteland, but now is proven to be very valuable. This is the remnant of a great nation that they once had. And when you have that kind of perspective of being on the same piece of land for thousands, about 10,000 years, and understanding this is what you have left, is this 235,000 acres, it really changes your perspective on sustainability. Understanding whatever fish, whatever wildlife, whatever trees are here, this is all we have left. And we need to take care of it if we are going to sustain ourselves as a people. So that, I think, to me, that understanding of a remnant of land is what's left really puts things in perspective as far as sustainability for the people here.
What was the student rate of completion for the course? Was the attendance required? Did students show up?
For this specific course, Introduction to Statistics, we had 12 students, and I think I just did grades. Maybe one person out of the 12 didn't pass the course. So the pass rate is pretty significant. And typically for higher level courses, at least at the College of Menominee Nation, the pass rate is quite a bit higher than the lower level courses. And for the attendance, I don't make attendance mandatory. However, I do have in-class assignments every day, so that encourages attendance and encourages students to show up on time.
What software did the students use to perform the statistical analyses?
We just use basic Excel and using the regression analysis, hypothesis testing, and differences using Excel, specifically the ToolPak add-on for Excel.
Does the tribe provide offerings in their tradition as far as climate change to promote rain and good health in general?
To promote good health, yes. Yes, the tribal clinic is very much working on that and has lots of programs, and they work with the college here on promoting well-being.
I think we hit the high spots. If I'd like to take this opportunity to show our appreciation to our two speakers today and the excellent presentations that they prepared for us. So keep in touch, and we're hoping if you feel this worthwhile, you'll be getting a survey in a few days. Let us know what you think about these presentations and what you would like to see in future presentations as well. Thank you for all your attention, and look forward to working with you in the future. Goodbye.
Okay. Goodbye, Arnold.